David and housekeeping Austin Jeff.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I am Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. Let's do this, guys. We got a big show for you guys, and we are excited. As you see, we have a special guest with us, and we were going to introduce him in a second. But first, we're going to let you guys know and remind you that we are sponsored by the Virtual Fight Tour, and Virtual Fight Tour is getting set up for the Put Up or Shut Up. All right, you can actually, they put out the registration date. It is set up on Uventex. You can go ahead, put up your $1,000 to bring your team, and that's going to be in September, the day before Jesse's tournament, King of New York. So, and if you and your team, go ahead and do that on Friday, you'll get, one free division the next day, so go ahead and make a weekend out of it, so going to be pretty awesome. Also, they just got off of, which we're going to talk a little bit about, the Ocean State Grand Nationals, putting up the last man standing, which was the winner was Elijah Everill. So it was great to see him versus Jack Felton. And, another successful last man standing VFT challenge. So, yep, awesome.
Now,
all right.
Alex, you were there.
Yes,
you
sir.
were at the Ocean State Grand Nationals.
He was.
I
So we're
saw
going
you
to go
reffing
ahead.
too.
All right. So again, we have Alex Lane right here. So member of JPM, multiple time world champion, NASCAR champion, WACO champion. I believe, is it IAXA world champion as well? Were you one of those?
Yes, sir. IASCA and IAXA.
There you go. Awesome. So welcome. And yeah, let's get into just the weekend. And you were there. Yeah, like Alex was saying, you were there judging, I'm sure helping out in many ways. So
absolutely. Yeah, it was a great tournament. Great getting back from this pandemic. Coach definitely wanted to do the best thing he could do to put, his foot down for fighters getting back into, competing. And he was putting up a lot of money. He also came up to myself, Terry Creamer, and Michael Simmons. He handpicked us to judge the fighting divisions because we know there was a lot of other big players there as well. Ross Levine was there, Raymond Daniels, but they also had a lot of the teammates too, and so we were trying to do the best interest to judge, fighters right. As well as being former fighters. You want to try to have as many people as you can to keep the judging consistent.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. A fantastic move, bringing you guys in. It definitely creates a lot more credibility. What was the fighters' take on that, since you're mentioning it?
It was a little bit confusing up front with some of the rules.
Some of the new rules, being right?
That's what I was upgraded. Yeah, but ultimately all the fighters adapted and understood how the calling was going to be. We were trying our best to be as fair and consistent, making sure we're seeing calls moving around as much as we can, and then also too rotating. For the super fights, we wanted coach specifically was like, I want to rotate the centers as much as we can to keep it as transparent as we can. Because the competition itself, we want to be as much involved, trying to keep things best interest for the fighters. I'd say talking to them afterwards, I came up to Jesse Ray and Raymond and a couple of the other guys. I was like, hey guys, I don't have any issues. If you want to grade me or whatever, give me something that I need to work on. I don't care. Just tell me. And I obviously will improve it, because without improvement, that doesn't, help our sport. So I feel like And they told me, they're like, for the most part, it was good. That just the consistency on the out of bounds rule was kind of the real big issue we
Yeah.
had ultimately. But everything else went real well. I actually heard that a lot of the fighters that were competing not on the stage, they actually didn't really have an issue with going out of bounds. So it was mostly on the stage because the stage was a little bit smaller. It's the same original stage that he's had for years, but I think that because of the rule changes, it was finally, okay, we need to pay more attention to that.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things of, I noticed that watching the stuff was just the confusion on that part. But I think overall, you guys made sure that, I felt like I liked how the center changed. That was cool to me. I thought, especially because you had 3 guys that could run it well, and it wasn't like a drop off when one was the center and then the other wasn't. That was a good move, I thought. And again, just adapting to everything. I thought everything went well. For the most part, I didn't see too many like calls that were like, "Oh, that was real bad." For the most part, watch, there always are some things from my view that look different than you guys, especially from the camera view. Which, so, and again, you're talking about a camera view compared to stage and actually being in there and seeing it, hearing it, all that. So, I thought it was exciting. Anything that stood out to you about like fighters and just performances of the week?
Well, I got to say, Avery Plowden, man, he's definitely putting everybody on notice. I'd hate to say, as far as from there hasn't been a fighter necessarily other than Elijah that I've seen really kind of give him trouble, as well as Jack Felton. Jack Felton is another one that I feel like has always been consistent and keeping the same formula that he's had since I started competing against him when I was 16. And he continues to keep pushing forward. And then you got, seeing everybody else, all the other fighters from Legend Team, seeing the fighters from Next Level, Kodak, and all the, again, all the all-star fighters as well. Chris Walker, good seeing him. He's always seeing him is cool, and especially competing. Catching up with him. We grew up and trained a lot, and had a good history together too.
Awesome. So again, so those that don't know, Avery Plowden won the super fight division, right? Jack, and he won that over Enrique in the finals, right? And then,
and don't forget Morgan. I was going to say, the female
course,
ladies, they also continue to go forward. Mouse Milner, she trains with one of my instructors, Ray Bryant, continues to keep making it to the stage and getting every chance she get to getting the overall. So she, having her there also, seeing her do her stuff was great as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Morgan won both the open weight and the women's overall. I believe. Again, one of those was over Mouse. I think that was the open weight, I believe.
I believe so.
And then the overall was over Tahira Kadir, which is El Java's daughter, and this is her first adult tournament. So
that's so important for her to be able to fight Morgan now.
Right.
Yes.
Very, very important because, I mean, Morgan, like there's nobody touching her, nothing, right? And then there might be a few fighters from Europe that could do some damage. Maybe Katana, if Katana has a hot day, but I mean, we saw that at the Diamonds. It didn't, last. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, but nobody's going to touch her right now. Right now, nobody's going to touch Morgan. So the fact that she was able to fight her in her first adult tournament, right? She's not supposed to win, right? She's not supposed to win. So she goes out there and she has a few exchanges or clashes that don't go her way. It doesn't matter because at least she kind of gets a gauge. Like, where am I? Right?
Yeah.
Where am I? And it's not like, all right, where am I in terms of good competition. Now, where am I in terms of the best fighter that's here on planet Earth? Right?
Right.
Yeah, no,
that's big.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely big. Also, let's see, we had, the teams, All-Stars 1 teams. What did you think about the team fighting this weekend?
Team fighting, again, another very, competitive. There was actually, I believe, 8 teams, which again, for coach's message was pretty clear. Let's get fighting back, make it, popular, especially after coming back from this pandemic. I mean, a lot of players, we saw a lot of people come out and support them, but there's also the teams itself. I mean, everybody seems to all click and gel together very well. The rule changes that came into play, again, adjusting to it. The not winning by 2 points anymore, I think will also help too. I remember judging at the U.S. Open last year briefly for teams, and there was an overtime division with Straight Up and Team Legend, and they went to overtime for about another 5 minutes just because they couldn't get 2 points. So having that 1 point overtime rule definitely will, it's brought down that time aspect, and ultimately having the best team win. Yeah, and I thought it was great.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
good, man. Yeah, I'm so glad that we're down to we don't have to win by 2 anymore.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the win by 2.
Yeah, I mean, it was good for creating more, excitement. But there was issues where you had 5, team fights with 5 judges, and then you had team fights with 3 judges, and then you had that situation where you just kept going back and forth again for like 5 minutes, and then you got to the point where the coaches were getting frustrated with the calls, and it was like, guys, we're on the corners, we're moving, let's it keeps going back and forth. It's give and take.
Right. Definitely.
Well, speaking of going back,
and
let's go back.
Yep, go ahead.
Let's go back to how this thing started, brother. Right? Okay. You talked about all the guys that you caught up with.
Sure.
All right. And some of them Floridian guys. Being you, right? A young kid from Florida, started in his martial arts career. How did that whole thing come to be? Because everybody kind of starts, in different ways for different reasons. Because we just remember you as this young teenage kid with 18-foot legs out there at karate tournaments. But how did we get to that point?
So first off, started martial arts when I was 6 years old. My original instructor was Tom Somerville and Ben Cohen, American Kempo. Followed that within, from 6 years old, got my first degree in junior black belt. And I trained alongside with people like Dustin Chavanik, who's also in the same system. Okay. Jason Muma, he's another. And then right around the time frame, I was about 12, 13 years old. I actually would compete at certain national tournaments. We would go to the Battle of Atlanta. We would go to Bluegrass Nationals for Mr. Ken Eubanks. And then we also went to a couple times to the Empire State Nationals up in New York. I remember going up to the tournament back in '99 to when it was at Madison Square Garden. And that was the fact that it was in the Garden, you didn't care where it was in the concession stand, but it still was in the Garden. Yeah. And then transition to, after that, I around 14, 15, I met Preston Clements. Preston he came over, did a seminar at our school, and he sat down with me after we got done training. He's like, look, if you want to keep continuing and you want to compete full time and go into tournaments, nationally, it's like, if you're feeling like you want to train more, if you get your instructor's permission, go train, come train with us. There's also Steve Butcher, Calvin Thomas, Don Rafi, Mike Smith, all those names. They have fight nights, which we all got together, started doing the fight sessions. And then, after that time frame, I started training. There was a couple group of people growing up then as well that we also really gelled together. Stephen Graham. We also have Jesse Galmore, Joe Fife, Sean, and we all had we were a younger group that was up and coming and trying to get more, training and getting out to tournaments more actively, not just within the regional Florida circuit, but we were also going, for a lot of the national tournaments. So I also started training, very heavily with them, and then we got to the point where we started going to team events, and then I got asked to be a part of Team Impressive, which was the team that was with Preston, Jason Muma, and Steve Butcher. And
Now, what time was this? What year is that?
Yeah, what year?
that was 2001, 2002, 2001, 2002.
Now, how old
right
are
around
you at that
time.
point?
I was 15.
All
yeah,
right,
actually, yeah, 15, 16. No, so I'm sorry, 16. Excuse me.
16. People are just starting to realize, like, hey man, who's that kid? Who's
Right.
that kid? Right?
Slowly.
Florida, everybody knew you, but now nationwide, you've got everyone's attention because you're winning divisions now. Am I right?
Not necessarily. Like around my
Okay.
first year in 16, 17, it was really, challenging because I was also fighting with people like Nate Windsor. He was he was in the tall group, and then his teammate that
Jerry.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
Jerry.
and
Jerry Davis.
yeah,
I mean,
Jerry
sorry.
Jackson.
Jerry Jackson. Yeah.
So yeah, 16, 17 was really like it was a start, and then the senior year of 16, 17, Nate and also who was from Alex Reyes.
Was it
I
Ray?
forget his name.
Raymond? No.
Mendoza. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ray Mendoza.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ray Mendoza. He was another guy. Alex called him the chosen one. And then the following year, they all went to adult. And so I always, once they went to adult, I kind of watched a lot of them to see what they were doing. And they were fighting people, Jotty, Trevor, Preston, and Raymond, and Jason Borelli, Ninja Fitzpatrick,
Right.
Jason Facey. I mean, so many top names that were just,
And not
blowing
just
up at
top
that point.
names, really talented names, like
Exactly.
very and athletically talented.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. Then watching them, the senior year of 16, 17, I was just like, okay, I know that we're going to have to make some adjustments. Granted, I'm tall. I can, cover a lot of distance. I've got good legs, but I know that going into adult, they're not going to welcome you basically just jumping ship from one age bracket to another. You're going to have to definitely expand your tools and polish up a little bit better, making more contact and doing more to accomplish going forward. Hitting harder and smarter, and also covering more distance, and not always using your legs, completely. Learning to punch more, things like that.
Well, all right. So going off of that, so
Mhm.
that was like the tidbit of name dropping. First of all, I think you dropped 487 names, but it was
Sure.
awesome though because those are all the people that really were like impressive to you at that time. Those are influential people that really impacted you, but they're also people of note in the time. So you started mentioning like what it was like when you were in 16, 17. So I never really noticed a lot of juniors. I don't really pay attention to a lot of them. I do remember you as a junior, and I remember I'd say the last half of the year, right? When you were a junior. And I remember thinking to people, I was like, dude, this dude could be a problem. And the book and the MO at that time was like, yeah, but he can't punch, right? That's what everybody was saying. They were like, yeah, this guy can't punch. I'm like, dude, he'll figure it out, right?
Right.
And they're like, nah, dude's soft. He's not because he can't punch. He's just all leg. He's all leg. I was like, yeah, but that leg is pretty damn good, right? Fast forward, you're in the adult division. What's it like? Because I remember what I saw, and I remember seeing like I knew that was going to happen. And what I thought was going to happen is I thought people are just going to try to bust you up. People were just going to try to bully you and make you want to quit internally, right?
Yeah.
And what was it like for you? I don't know if you felt like that was your experience, but what was it like for you, your first year in the adults?
It was no question. It was really like stress in the beginning, just because I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna get hit. I know I'm gonna get rocked. I know I'm gonna, probably have somebody drop me. Um, I've had numerous times in the dojo getting, beat up, in kempo, but I also had numerous times getting beat up, in sparring with older, full contact fighters. And so that was the one thing that I definitely polished up more. I started going to Mike Smith's studio over in Cocoa Beach. I would drive 2 to 3 days a week, go train at his dojo, because he had a lot of adult fighters that were hitting hard, a lot of even some full contact fighters. And I remember
Nice.
fighting, continuous, 2-minute rounds as much as I could to try to at least get more aggressive. Because going into an adult, yes, you're right. There were some people that you could tell they wanted to, try to rock me and get me going. I remember there was one tournament we went to fight teams, and they asked the question, "Who's going to fight Jotty?" And I'm like, "I'm going to swing for the fence. I got nothing to lose. I mean, if he hits me and he drops me, I'll do my best to, block or get up and keep going and move forward. I'm not scared." And I did. And it was a good team fight. He didn't like the side kicks that I caught him with a couple times, but he still won the team fight. And that from there on out, I felt like, okay, I can probably move forward with this. I'm still gonna have people like Kodak hitting me late. Jeremy Roque, he was another that would also hit
He
late.
wears that with a badge of honor, though.
Yeah, he
But
does.
you know what? It was nothing but, growing pains and understanding that you can get better and better. Oh, sorry, excuse my dog. um,
Cool.
but yeah, it was them, and understanding, pushing forward, and then getting again understanding that we could keep fighting more and more and more. And then eventually I got to the point where, all right, not only am I kicking and I'm actually, being consistent on winning divisions, but I'm also getting on the grands. And I remember coach was, at the time, I wasn't picked up by Paul Mitchell, and coach was like, "Alex, just keep doing your thing to get to stage, because you're going to get noticed." And then Preston even also told me the same thing. And Preston's like, "Look, you got CJB kind of keeping an eye on you lately. I'm just not trying to over promise anything, but if you're going to keep training, keep doing what you're doing." And Preston's also a big influence on that. We went to the gym, and he got me bulked up a little bit. I remember I was a super lightweight going into the lightweight division. I remember I had to pick up weight, and growing up with those guys, and getting on, a diet to try to increase, more muscle, more, pushing out. So that way, whenever it came time to hitting side kicks, they were firm, reverse punches, firm, nothing that was soft. At least, from my technical side.
So, and this is like your rookie year. So now you've just been made aware that a couple of top teams, the top two teams,
Right.
were eyeballing you.
This
How
is
did you take?
this is 2004, right?
It was 2004.
Yeah.
CJB was the only one that was I was informed by. It wasn't JPM. Just
Right.
because back then they were at a rebuild stage. Preston was with Elias, Jesse Goldberg. Trying to think anybody else that was with that. Oh, Trevor was on the team, but he was
Trevor was on-
also
Yeah.
he was only doing a couple tournaments, which
He
I
was
think
doing
was
like
only
3 or 4 events a year.
yeah, I think it was like the battle maybe, and then diamonds.
Diamonds, yeah.
But he wasn't going to all the other tournaments that the team was going, so they needed eventually to start figuring out who they were going to add on to their fighting roster, because back then that was another huge game changer when Raymond, Jotty, Reggie, and Mikey P, decided to, go a different direction. And when that happened, I remember, Preston called me and he's like, look, you're going into adult, you're going to go into a very, very interesting time frame, but just FYI, he's like, these guys are all leaving. And I'm like, are you leaving? And he goes, no, he goes, I don't think it's in the best interest, but also I don't want to, I don't have any intentions on going anywhere to another team. I was like, coach has been loyal and I've been, a good, we've been good together. There's no issues. So I said, okay, well, don't know what the news is. It's not my business. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And that's exactly what happened. And then eventually things fell into place.
So what was that though? What was it, like? Eventually, you got the call at the, what was it like? It was towards the end of 2004, right?
It was at DC Capital Classics.
Yeah. It was after that.
That was the same weekend as Hurricane Charlie, which came. We were the last flight going out to DC. My father, he stayed home, and then we went to the tournament, and we got there, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, you managed to get out of the storm, cool." And then that Saturday, I didn't fight that Friday because I didn't have anybody to team fight with. And when you would go to tournaments, especially when we were not picked up by anybody, we were like, hey, you want to fight together? So like there would be, teams that we would fight together that showed up on, last minute.
There was a lot of talented guys that would happen with. Like, hey man, you got anything to fight with? I don't have anything. I don't got, my team's not here. Who were some of the guys that you did that with? That you did, because you did that a few times. You just picked up and fought with a few guys. Who were some guys that you did that with before you ended up on JPM?
I'll give you a couple of names. Kyle Richards. I fought with him.
Oh, that's a fun one.
I fought with Jeremy Roque. Obviously, he was another one. Who else? Dustin Schiavonic. I fought with him. It was me, Jeremy, and Dustin Schiavonic at U.S. Open one year. Or actually, that was 2004. And then a couple other pickup teams every now and then. It was there was a promoter that was in the Tampa area that started a small sponsorship, and he wanted to sponsor a team for men's team fighting, and so we had a couple put together teams every now and then. It was fun. It was definitely interesting too, because I remember at Bluegrass we fought, and we actually fought JPM. And it came down to me fighting Trevor, and Trevor gave me a schooling lesson on kicking and not understanding long legs, because I fought Nate Windsor before. He was long legged, but I didn't fight somebody like Trevor who was able to just pick angle after angle after angle kicking.
Right.
And I remember we were down and I had to get up, so I was like trying to find a way in, and it was not happening. And Trevor was just picking me apart.
All right, so wait a minute now. I know it kind of derailed where you were going, but
sorry.
I gotta know. I want to hear more about this with you fighting Trevor, because from a long lead leg right side kicker fighting a very strong, explosive left side hard hitter, great kicker. What the heck was that like?
It wasn't that much different than fighting Preston, other than that Preston always came with his hands after his kicks. When I had to fight Trevor at Bluegrass that year, Trevor always he does follow up with his lead leg and afterward. But when we were team fighting back then, I was down and they were up. So his mindset was, I'm just going to kick and pick them apart, and that's what he did. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really do much for him. He didn't necessarily need to use hands. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So I think that, when you fight a lefty, again, I was working on training alongside with Preston, and he was a left-legged kicker. So for us, it was a little bit similar, but there was some differences when it came down to the style, especially at team fighting. Yeah, you wanted to talk about DC though?
Yeah. Let's talk about it, because I was there. I remember
that. That was totally my fault.
No worries. So DC, we got through the hurricane, and then we had to fight on Saturday. I won my division. I remember fighting Russ Taylor in the lightweight grand.
Yep.
Wow, what a throwback name.
That's when Mike Conroy looked at me and goes, where did okay, we're fighting Alex, and then all of a sudden I beat Russ pretty soundly, and Russ was getting through the super lightweight division like he had gone through a
Consistently.
battle, but he won, and then I fought, and then won that division, and then we fought the Grand, and then it came down to me and Mallory Woods, and
Right, because
then
you had to fight
Press,
the 30-39 at
By
that
30
time.
and
yeah,
Mallory was the
Yep.
30
and then
lightweight.
Elias, he won the middleweight Grand, and then Damon won the heavyweight
Heavyweight.
Grand.
Yeah.
And Damon at the time was on CJB, and I remember there was always this thing that I did where if it came down to a coin toss or a card flip to figure out who had the bye to fight, the winner of for the finals, Mr. Carnahan would draw cards. I wouldn't touch a card. I let the both fighters do it first, and I was like, "You guys draw the cards. I'm not touching those. I'll let fate decide if I'm fighting the winner or if I'm fighting first. I don't care."
Wasn't that a
And
weird
so,
time that we had to do it like that?
Yeah, it was
With the
weird.
coin flip or cards. Like, we have no real system to figure out what's happening.
yeah, it was cool, and of course, Elias Drew, Damon had to fight each other. Damon fought they fought on stage. Elias lost, and then I ended up fighting Damon and beat Damon on stage. And
Yeah.
at that point, everyone was kind of like shocked, like, okay, we got a rookie winning the overall.
Right. Right.
And it was a good fight, and I remember getting hit by Damon's back fist and reverse
real.
punch, and
Hey, you remember it? That's good.
It's definitely something you'll never forget. And after when I won that overall, that's when Preston came up to me, goes, "Hey, you think that's an accomplishment? You need to keep going." And he goes, just embrace the moment, but also keep understanding you got to keep moving forward. And then the following week, I remember Preston came up to me. He goes, "Hey, CJB is going to contact you, but you got to pick where your heart's at." He's like, "There might be a possibility you'd be getting a phone call from Coach." And I'm like, "Okay." And I had been working with Coach even before that, because I remember going to Waco in Paris in 2003. That was actually my first adult fight. Was at Waco in Paris, and I ended up losing the very first fight. Ran out of gas because I didn't train for it the way, because I wasn't prepared on how the level of training it was, where it was 3 2-minute rounds, and it just I tried to 10-point my guy and it gassed me. But I remember after I got home that Tuesday, I got a phone call, and it's, "Hey, how'd you like to be a part of JPM?" And I said, "Well, ever since I was 6 years old, and I remember going my first tournament at 8. I remember seeing black and white, and I told my parents that's where I wanted to go at one day." And I said, "Well, I want to fight alongside my coach and my teammate, which Preston. We'd been training nonstop, since we got together, and I was like, I just want to fight with him. I'd rather do that and follow further." And I do remember Mike Conroy reaching out to me, asking and calling out. And so I do want to apologize, Mike. I didn't ever get back to you. I wasn't shying away from you. I just obviously, my heart at the time, I wanted to go black and white, and that call came through, and the rest is history.
But then actually, after that, CJB actually took a break, so it kind of worked. It worked out. I remember you and I talking about that at Super Grands that year, because that was the next thing. You and Preston and Kyle Richards fought for Super Grands that year. It was funny. As Bay Area's best, 2 Florida guys.
Mike Babchi.
Yeah. Yep. Mike Dabashi sponsored you guys, and you had one California guy there, but the 2 Florida guys representing the Bay Area. It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was fun times. And then that was actually the first time I met Brian Pumple face to face, and because I'd always watch him, but I never actually introduced or spoke to him. And that was the very first time we spoke to each other. And he was just like, "Welcome to the team." He's like, "Remember, you got a target on your back from here on out, and so whatever you train, you got to train twice as much." And I'm like, "Yep, yes sir, absolutely." And it was a good experience, because I also remember back then a lot of people were like, well, Alex is only a NASCA guy. He doesn't cross over to NBL or other leagues. And it's like, all right, fine, I'll go over to NBL. And I did, and that, we won the teams, and that was it. So
Yeah. That
Now
was
you're
cool,
on
man.
the team. We're going in
Yep.
to 2005. And what does the team of Paul Mitchell look like now?
So 2005, it was me, Elias, Jesse Goldberg. We were really all
It's really
trying to
just you
figure out.
three.
Yeah, it
as
was
a
just
solid,
us three.
and then
Kevin
Preston would
Thompson
come in.
and Preston, they would come in, and Preston was kind of at that point shying. He was still competing actively, but there wasn't a lot of tournaments he could always go to.
Right.
So it was mostly me, myself, Jesse, and Elias. And so we were really green going, against all the other competitors. But we also wanted to go as a JPM, because back then a lot of people would always look at JPM as the elite group, to where they're kind of like the Yankees. They're hated. They don't, want JPM to win whatsoever. And so we wanted to have a different mindset, like, you know what, let's fight, let's win, let's do it the right way, but also let's make sure we're taking care of business in the best interest, and we're not being shady, we're not, hitting late, we're not doing things that to have some aggression. And that was the way I think we were going into, that factor, and it was working, because we were getting better and gelling better. And then we started went later in the year when we finally decided we were going to add Greg Betlock to the team. Then we were gelling even better, because we had four people on the roster where we would rotate and have the alternate. I remember that was back in the day too, where they were also talking about the rules where you had to, if you were with a pickup team, you had to be at certain, 2 events, whatever, and they went back and forth with that too.
That was right before you picked up Greg.
Yeah, 2005
was like one of the weirdest years in martial arts.
It was one of the best for me, because winning the U.S. Open that year, as well as Waco.
That's right, over Hakeem Walker. You won the U.S. Open.
Yeah, and that was an amazing year, because again, winning that tournament that year, I came close to also a coaches tournament that same year. I fought Jason Borelli and Raymond on stage at Ocean State, and I remember getting pep talked by the team that, like, look, Jason's just going to walk on you. And I just completely had a different mindset. Instead of me wanting to kick going into the match, I punched majority of the match and beat Jason, and then fought Raymond, and then went to overtime with Raymond, and then get caught by a back fist. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm frustrated, but I was like, okay, I came close, but at the end of the day, I didn't beat Raymond, and I'm not gonna look at it as going backwards. I'm gonna keep going forward. And then I fought Raymond again at Bluegrass that year. Went to in the Grands, he was fighting middleweight, I was fighting light middle, and we both came across. He beat me in the Grands, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep going with this. And then 2000, and then U.S. Open, we won, U.S. Open, and then again, going to Waco that year. No one knew from overseas. Social media really wasn't a big deal, other than sportmartialarts.com at the time. And not a lot of video was really circling around about myself, other than my junior year. And a lot of the European fighters didn't really watch any of this film. So I remember when we went to Waco that year, no one really knew who I was. Except for, Canada, like Steve Nasty Anderson, Ben Stewart, those guys, they knew who I was, but everybody overseas didn't know who I was. And so when we got through the division, I remember fighting Robbie McDermott, Jason Cashman for a gold medal, and it was just,
those are good fighters.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was a great year. And then 2005, I would say, was probably one of the peak years.
All right,
Well,
so hold on
go
one
ahead,
second. Yeah, so you explained about the difference in the rounds, and just having to have the gas, for Waco. What else was different as far as that for you, especially at that time? Now a lot of us are more, we watch Waco all the time. We kind of know what it is, but that 2005 kind of time is still a lot
wasn't a
different
lot
than
of
it is
people doing
now.
it.
It wasn't a lot of people doing it as far as from USA. And I think the style has changed now over there a little bit than what it was, so.
Because I
Absolutely.
remember
I
talking
mean,
to you, Alex, before you went and did it, and I'm like, because I didn't know anything about it really. I'm like, I mean, I know it's a thing, but I'm like, should we even go? Like, is there really even a point to it? And then you said something to me. You're like, what's the only way you have a true world championship? I'm like,
yeah,
well, what do you mean? And you said, well, the other stuff's just point totals. This is like a true world championship with everyone from the world. And I'm like, all right, never mind. That's a good point.
yeah. That in 2005, actually, it was the very first year. I also remember meeting Zolt.
Okay.
Zolt actually beat Jesse Goldberg in the division, and it was a little bit controversial because he was kicking and some of his kicks he was falling to the ground, but he won the fight convincingly, and he did it the right way. But the main thing about Waco back in 2005 to where it is now, again, going back to the social media platform and videos, you didn't really have that. So a lot of the European fighters didn't know the American fighters, and a lot of the American fighters, when you go to Waco tournaments, you had to raise your own money to go to these events. You had to get some type of sponsorship,
Talk
and
about a target on your back, an American fighter
yeah,
going to a Waco tournament.
you don't have, unless you've got a sponsor that's going to pick you up and take you overseas, it's really tough. And JPM was doing that for some of the fighters for a while, and that back then it was Waco was also coached by Don Rodriguez as well. So there were a lot of Americans didn't really get into the Waco experience. And I remember for the longest time, no one really knew who Raymond was over in Europe, as well as Jason Borelli and Trevor. They didn't know who. I mean, they had gone overseas before. They went to Switzerland a couple times, the Cayman Islands. They know who they fought there, but they didn't go to Waco back then. And I remember Jotty Tension was one that I paid very close attention to in 2003 when we went to Waco. And I remember watching exactly what he did to get his gold medal. And I was like, okay, I understand that it's a completely different element. Again, it's not NASCA, it's not NBL, it's not all the other US leagues. They do have a very, very consistent level of competition, and refereeing, you do not argue with them whatsoever. That is completely the
It's a quick
same
way to get
today.
kicked out.
Yeah. I think that the the league itself is definitely it's more consistent again on the rules, but the change of, again, the social media platforms, I think it's what really transitioned the difference, from a lot of American fighters eventually going overseas to compete, going to Irish Open, going to Austria Classics, um, and then the other European events there, the Hungarian Open. It's definitely a lot different now than it was back then, because they didn't go to these tournaments a lot, and a lot of the European fighters, they would, when they came to the United States, they would only go to maybe 1 to 2 tournaments. Coach's was one, because Coach had a lot of Waco relations prior, so he was able to try to get some of the UK fighters or the other fighters from Team Europe to come over to the United States to compete.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember seeing, like, again, even some of the English fighters would come to NBL tournaments, like J.C. Cashman would go to Amerikick almost every year, and then you had, the Winspurs, Matt Winsper, that came over for Super Grands in '98, and his brother. So, it was different. It was, when they came, you noticed it, but it wasn't like it is now. It's just completely different. It's just a different change. The other thing I would say too is having Raymond and those guys go over there and do seminars for years has changed just their style as well, of
Absolutely.
fighting. So just a
Absolutely.
big difference, as when you share your Waco experience, it's a lot different than it is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
We
know,
didn't really, yeah, I mean, we didn't have, again, the viral platforms that we have today. Internet was very, very little. But also too, the sport of Waco really wasn't a big deal. Like they were trying their best to get in the Olympics, but it's still to this day is still a challenge. Um,
right?
and it's getting there. It's getting better. I believe, Waco's got a great leadership behind it now. And I hope that eventually with this pandemic, we get back to getting to point fighting and getting our fighters back overseas and having them coming back over to us and competing, because it definitely brings more excitement too, for the sport, having those fighting to the stage. Watching Elijah this past weekend, and judging him as well, it's different, but his fighting style was working for the most part. Um,
Right.
besides the fight between him and Avery, that I judged, that was the only difference I saw. But he fought great.
Yeah,
Okay,
but then he
question about
adjusted the
Elijah.
rest of the weekend.
Yeah,
Question
absolutely.
question about Elijah. Just asking your opinion. Is he the fastest fighter you've ever seen?
No,
No.
All right.
Who's faster? I mean, I think there's some candidates, but who do you think is faster?
1999 Raymond.
Mm,
I
yeah.
like that you specified the
Yeah,
year
the year exactly.
Yeah,
because I
19,
fought him in '99.
yeah, 1999
It wasn't his
Raymond.
best, but you're right. I think that might have been the fastest Raymond Daniels we saw.
99 and 2002 Jason Borelli. I mean, sorry, I go by the years, but I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, fastest still is to this day, I believe, is Raymond.
Yeah. I
Okay,
like it. I like it.
going on.
All right.
curious.
So we talked about that first year on JPM. Let's kind of, just not sum up your JPM experience, but what were some of the big moments of that? And
Good, because I got some ones I want to talk about. I want
yeah.
to hear what you want to talk about.
I would say the highlight, was team fighting at Quebec Open. I was actually just talking to Chris Rappold about this, over the weekend. There was a team fighting. It was where we had two teams at the time. Damon was with the team, and Chris Rappold just came back from Paul Mitchell. He was on a team in the '90s and early 2000, but he came back later on. And so a coach decided to pair myself, Damon, and Chris together, and we're like, okay, so Chris is going to be the wild card on this roster. So we'll see how everybody else on teams kind of goes back and forth. So we fought, all the teams, and then came down to us and Wazaroo, which was AKA the old CJB. But it was the Wazaroo international team from, Clermont's squad, and I remember David Bossinet, as well as Renee. It was those two, and then I forget the other
Was
third
it
was.
Maxime?
Might have been, yeah, Maxine. Actually, I think it was. Well, first fight was Damon and Renee, and Renee had Damon's number and got us down bad.
And
And
Renee
I
was
was like,
sneaky fast. That guy was
yeah,
sneaky fast.
Yeah,
he was. And I remember I was looking at Damon. I was like, "Don't worry, we'll about we got this." I was like, and I looked at Chris. I was like, "Just keep it close, keep it within." I'm like, I'm
I'm
looking at
gonna
Damon. I
laugh
was like,
like
if he
that. I'm
keeps,
sorry.
I was like,
I'm
if he
sorry.
keeps it close, we're good. So it gets a sidekick at the end against Maxine, and then we're down by 4, and then I fought David, and I don't remember exactly what transpired, but it was just a keep kicking moment, and literally I remember winning the match with 7 points above the team.
Wow.
So we came back and won by like 6 or 7 points, and I remember at the end David Boston pointed at me, goes, "I hate you." And me and Damon were just high-fiving, and I was just like, this is probably the best team fight I think I ever fought and watched. And But no, I mean, a lot of the team fighting, growing with them. Greg Bentlock and Elias, I loved fighting with them. And then even fighting again with my coach Preston, we only fought a couple tournaments together.
I
And
know.
Yeah,
then
crazy.
it was always a lot of times it was me, Damon, and Trevor too. Which at Joe Greenhall's tournament, New England Open, I remember that was a lot of fun, as well as Diamonds.
That's a good group right there. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, but it was
So
a lot of fun for sure.
Zach
you
Ross says you
had
were his toughest opponent. Zach Ross says my toughest opponent.
What up,
so
Zach?
you've had a ton of like great like teams and like you've had a lot of eras within JPM that you are part of. Like you mentioned, like you entered at a really interesting time. There
Mhm.
was the Exodus, there was this floating years to what is JPM, and then insert Alex Lane, right? And then it immediately turns like, oh no, this is a team again, right?
Yeah.
But then when you mentioned like Greg Betlock joined later on that same year, now it's like you said, you, Greg, and Elias. I feel that was your best team.
I think because we trained a lot, offside, that was another reason why I think we gelled together too. And we also, I mean, there were times there, Greg, would have some bad tournaments, or Elias, or even myself, and we would look at each other, be like, all right, well, let's pick each other back up. And I think that everybody that we team fought along, against at the time, we were humble, we were hungry, we weren't looking to be aggressive or hit late or be the bully, that people were misconceiving JPN back in the day, because that was, the team to beat, and it still is the team to beat. It's just, I think that was the main mindset is, and that a lot of the competitors were seeing like, yeah, these guys are good. They're consistent. They do the job. They're not, they're gonna win, and then that's it. And then every so often, if there was some, times where we would have some fighters that we would have to go, bounce back forth with, we'd have Kevin Thompson right up our butts and saying, all right, you're staying in this, and that's it. And
Awesome.
it was, yeah,
Yeah.
that was it.
Consistent's definitely the word I think of you guys. You know what I mean? It was just
Ooh,
like
you said it, Jeff.
always there. And no matter what, like I was because there were some teams that people at that time were more like, oh yeah, this is the team. You had the straight up team for that year or two. Then it switched to all stars. You had,
Right.
Watcheroo, you had eventually Full Circle, but you guys were always solid. And throughout the years, you could tell that especially you three were close, you know what I mean? And even with adding the other people, like adding Damon later on and adding, and when Trevor would come from time to time and adding the other guys, it just made it more solid. So
Yep, absolutely. I
All
remember
right, I got a
that was
couple things I want to touch on.
yeah. Sure, go ahead.
Because I have an issue. You said 2005 was your best year, and I don't believe it. I actually
Okay.
believe 2007 or
yeah.
2008. I actually think 2008 was your best year. Why do you? Because you had more overall wins than anybody else in 2008. You got yourself a diamond in 2008. I'm curious, why didn't that year pop into your head as like my year?
I think
Clearly,
it
you're most
was,
successful.
yeah. I mean, Diamonds. That was I mean, because I remember I had gone to Diamonds 2 year, like the 2 years before I lost to Raymond, um, both times. And so I remember that third time I came back, and yeah, it came down to myself and Greg Batlock. I remember before going into the match, I was like, okay, he's my teammate. We're gonna take care of business, but at the end of the day, someone's got to win here. And
Oh, that's not what Greg was thinking. I'll tell you that right now.
yeah,
Right?
well, it was his backyard and everything, and I
I'll
just
tell you
that
that
was my
right
first
now.
instinct,
Greg was
and I'm
like, I'm
like,
whooping his ass.
oh, yeah. I mean, that's what it was. It's like, okay, we're going in this. I'm gonna take care of business, and that's it. And we got done and shook hands, and I just was like, sorry, dude. I know it's your backyard, but we, we're teammates. But at the end of the day, when we're in the ring, that's it. So I don't know. I think 2008 definitely had a lot of positives, and yes, the Diamonds is the Diamonds. once you're in that group, again, it's an elite group. There's a lot of tournaments that you can win that say you're an elite group of people, and there's not many. And even go back to what you mentioned with Waco.
Yeah.
A lot of times there weren't a lot of top names that had a Waco gold medal. Raymond did not have a gold medal in Waco for a very long
Very
time.
long time. Yeah.
So like it's just
it's a big deal.
Yeah. And also the fighters around it, it's not like, you had, it was just handed to you by a silver platter. You busted your butt to get there, and it took time, but eventually things clicked your way. Judging was your way, fighting was your way, and that's it.
Great.
I have another couple things.
Okay.
Another couple
One,
things.
I want to hear a story, and then I got to tell you one that I want to hear your side on. Okay.
Okay.
First, you keep mentioning Greg, right? Lies. You're talking about, because you and Greg, I feel like you guys came in at such a close time together, and you guys pretty much lasted for almost the same duration, right? Tell me a story about Greg. Now, I don't mean a fighting story. You know what I'm talking about. Tell me a funny ass Greg moment.
I guess the only funny story is probably
utilizing
some
What do you mean the only?
Well, there's a couple, I'm sure, but
Exactly.
I mean, I'll get to the very basic one. Let's just say that when you use a hair product, you're supposed to make sure obviously it doesn't bleach your eyebrows, and apparently it did to him one time.
Stop. Wait a minute. Wait. Go back. What happened?
Wow, look at my team, Sharon.
Just, I guess something, he was doing a weekend project at his house with his parents, I guess, and he apparently used some shampoo specific, and that shampoo, I guess, had a reaction to his skin, and I don't know what happened, but apparently it turned his eyebrows orange.
And he has caterpillar-like eyebrows. I mean, those things have area codes. Those things are freaking big.
Well, I mean, my ears are big too, but at the end of the day, like, the
you
eyebrows
didn't bleach them
definitely...
orange.
No. Yeah, Mikey P, shaving the eyebrows. He came close to doing that, but definitely didn't do that to me. But yes, he ended up having to shave his eyebrows after that situation.
Wow.
That's amazing. All right, now I got to ask you a question. You had to see this coming. So it's Bluegrass. We're hanging out. We're all young. Nobody knows what the hell we're doing. You knew it was coming.
Yeah. Okay?
All right, we're hanging out. Speaking of Greg, we're hanging out with Greg's dad. And I'm telling you, Mr. B, this guy, he's as cool as the other side of the pillow, right? So none of us know, and Jeff, you got to hear this. Not all of us are young. We're talking 21, 2, 3 at the maximum.
Okay.
We have like sniffed alcohol like a couple of times in life, right? We don't know what the heck we're doing. So Greg's dad, Mr. B, he's like, I'm going to treat you guys to a really good Kentucky bourbon. We are in Louisville. Let's do that. And all of us are like, we don't want that. Give us a light beer, right? And he's like, no. We're going to do it nice, classy. And he gives us like a sifter. And we're like, something like this, right? Right, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Something like this. And when I'm talking, this stuff was great. And all of us bellied up at the bar. We all had like the same type of reaction. We're like, doesn't taste like fruit juice, right? So we're doing one of those things. So we all look at each other, and Greg's dad's like, please don't do that. And we all just go, boom, and we shoot it. Alex doesn't, right? Alex waits. He's looking, all right? I'm right next to you. He shoots it, and I'm telling you, Jeff, this stuff burned hard, right? Alex then sprays the bartender, right away. Probably the best choice because he didn't have to feel the burn the rest of the time like the rest of us dimrods, right?
Well, no. So I don't remember the exact thing that you said, but before we all took took the drink, but you said something before that all of a sudden it hit me, and then I started to laugh. And as soon as I started to laugh, boom, out spews that. And then of course you were saying, hey, no, that's because you didn't know how strong of a drink that was. And I'm like, yeah, you might have been right about that too. But you said, I don't remember
I
what you
don't
said
remember either.
before,
I don't remember either. But it was.
but you said
seriously-
something that made me laugh before taking the drink.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I
It's
did.
one of the
And
funniest moments of my whole life.
yeah,
Alright?
and I remember Manny Reyes Sr. was right on the other side having a beverage,
saw
and he just
that?
happened to see that, and he couldn't stop a smile and laugh the entire time. And I'm like, hey,
And that right there, folks,
Uh,
is why you don't get wasted at karate tournaments, because you
That's
have
right.
no clue who's watching you. I had this whole time, I had no clue Manny Reyes saw that whole thing.
yeah. But Bluegrass though had the best overall after parties, and
Yeah.
and you know, it was, besides the tournament itself was by far my favorite tournament growing up
Yep.
and
Same.
competing.
Yep. It was great. It was just, great. The biggest thing is we all say, Ken Eubanks is the best promoter ever. That's what most people say. You know what I mean? He just did, and he always just took care of everyone, my instructor collects all the t-shirts, right? And he would call him and say, hey, I lost my 1993 t-shirt. Ken would send him one. And I mean, he would, just that kind of thing, that he would do. So yeah, just a
Alright.
great guy.
So, with all of this, I mean, this has been a great time. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, Alex, what is life like for you right
Yeah.
now, man?
So now, it's mostly for me. I'm married now. I've
Congratulations.
just bought a home.
Stay that way.
Thank you. Just bought a home, and as far as life itself, I've got a career. Still staying active as much as I can, but competing wise, it's never say never. My favorite wrestler growing up is the Stinger, and he's just like, nothing's for sure. That's the philosophy I've always believed in for martial arts, is that it's always going to be there. I always look at the competition now too, and I always try to, make sure that if there's something that I can do to help and give, a little bit of suggestions, especially for the new JPM members that got picked up recently. I talked to a couple of them over the weekend. I was like, guys, embrace this moment, but also too, most importantly, do what's in the best interest. If you're young, finish, school, get your degree, and because no matter what, martial arts will always be your lifestyle, and it'll always be there for you. You can always go back to it.
Yeah, it ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, and competing wise, I mean, I see all the fighters, and like over the weekend, especially for the super fights, of course, I have got the itch. I would love to get back out
You
there and
have
go
the
compete.
itch.
Oh,
Oh,
all right.
absolutely. I would love to
you
get back
hear
out
that,
there.
Jesse
But-
Ray? He's got the
Yeah.
itch.
But it's also going to have the right circumstances if I ever did come back. I'd want to make sure I train correctly. I want to make sure that I put the right effort into training with the right people. But also, most importantly, if I ever wear the black and white again, it's only in the right interest for the team and what it stood for. Not going in it just because I was a Paul Mitchell member. I don't believe that whatsoever. I know my accomplishments and what I did, but I know that if the future of the team and they have other people that watch you, you want to set the right expectation, and also for the fighters that on the side, making sure we're watching competitors get the right proper treatment. If they ever take an injury or get a concussion. I remember we were having a lot of problems after my time leaving. I was watching competitors, on video getting some vicious shots, and making sure that the medical people are there and they're taking the right conditions and taking the right contingencies to make sure they're protecting the fighters. So watching that too, and giving some notion to the tournament to saying, guys, you need to step up on your medical staff because fighters are getting knocked out on video, and eventually it's going to come back to you. Granted, they may have
Right.
signed their waiver, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yep. Yeah, I remember hearing you talk about that before. I think with your interview with Travis actually years ago. And what you really talked about that, and I thought it was a great, many great points, about that. One more thing. So what do you feel, and what direction would you like to see Team JPM go as far as with fighting? Like what any insights? What would you like to, what would you like
Well,
to see?
I think that it may follow a similar pattern that it happened when the big exit came up, before I got picked up. There's always that possibility that they could go after current talent, or they could also look into going overseas again. They could look into even young talent. I think that the most important thing is that the current team now, they need to, get back to gelling together, being there for each other at the ring all the time, and then for the fighters especially too, making sure we're there for them, and getting the new people that are coming on board. I think they're going to want to have someone that's young, hungry, and humble, and that understands the black and white persona, and that there's no I in the word team. Making sure that they're taking care of themselves, making sure they're setting themselves up, after JPM, making sure that they are doing, the best interest for their career, again, later on, but setting themselves up. But I think for the fighters, I would love to see young talent come in, but I would also like to see maybe some old school talent come back eventually, and give a little bit of a humble pie, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah,
Who
definitely,
is the
definitely. I
old
think
school
they need
talent
that
you'd like to see?
Uh,
himself.
yeah, I wish. If I had the right mentality and training and time frame, yeah, I would say it's really tough now because you don't know, with the pandemic, you don't know who's still out there
Yeah.
now. And you're seeing, again, you're seeing a lot of the videos online. Um, I if it was ever a person I would want to ever come back, and again, I don't know the storyline. It's not my business. It's not the team. I would love to see people like Cam Dawson come back. But that again, I don't know, the situation on that. But I know him being on the team was definitely a good process, place, um, and having other fighters like him come as well.
There was one
Uh,
thing I wanted to ask you as well, and it was
Okay.
and I know we're kind of over time, but it was a takeaway from this last weekend. So you were there, you were watching the fighters. Now, Alex, I don't know if you knew this, but a couple years back, I put a top kickers
oh
list.
yeah,
Jeff and I made our top kickers list,
I did see
right?
that. Yeah.
Top kickers in forms, top kickers in fighting. You were a top 5 kickers all time
Thank you.
kicker. You were top 5. I put you right there. However, there have been people who've been saying that Enrique Latona is like one of the best kickers ever. Now you got a chance to watch this guy.
Mhm.
What do you think about Enrique Latona? His fighting
Uh,
style and his kicking.
his fighting style is not bad. Reminds me a lot of Zolt in some ways.
okay.
Some ways. And this goes back to a scenario where I feel like his kicking, it does have different elements, um, but I would say he does need to grow a little bit more improvement on having a little bit more hands, um, that are gonna, make some impact, and not, relying on the kicking, and utilizing the ring, um, because I think that the one thing that really was a big problem this weekend, and I watched the show the other day with Chris Walker and Carlos, is that, regardless if our judging is not really the best interest, I think that, the fighters, that if they learn, the good fighters learn to adapt,
Yep.
and if there was issues that, calls weren't being called correctly, I'm not perfect, but at the end of the day, if I make mistakes, I'll own up to it, and I'll admit that I'll do my best to correct it. But if I was making mistakes, like I think that you know, a lot of the fighting, you know, if you make it that close, then you obviously didn't do enough to make it that way. I think Enrique is a good fighter. I think he's up and coming. I think he's getting better. If there was actually an old school name you want me to bring back, El Java was one, by the way. That's what I was thinking, because I think him and his daughter, they would be a great combo at some point. If I had to pick somebody as a wild card for JPM people.
That's pretty cool.
Hey, I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
Awesome.
I like what you were saying about his style. He's a good kicker. Maybe standing on 2 feet would be something to we should employ.
Standing on 2 feet, yes. Now there was a couple
Or at
of
least
times
one.
where he was leaning back on the angles and going in a direction. Now clearly, if you fall to the ground intentionally, that's, you know, a judgment call based off of the angle that you're at. It's a different situation. But if he was also trying to go evade from the technique, that's also another thing. Falling down intentionally, I mean, I think he definitely does have a lot of time where he can practice that pretty well. Or in other words, in the NBA, flop. I don't think, you know, if he doesn't do that, maybe, I don't know.
All right.
That's about as diplomatic as
Yeah, I know. Oh man,
Hey, come on, man. We all had 2 eyes. We all saw this.
I mean, I'll see him in battle. That's my next tournament I'm planning to be at. So I'll
looking forward to seeing you there. Good. Looking forward to seeing you there.
When's your next tournament, Alex?
Yo, I don't know. I was trying to get to I was trying to get to the battle. It's not gonna be able to make it happen. But
yeah.
So probably diamonds.
Well, I mean, yeah, diamonds, of course. Yeah. Diamonds. But dude, I couldn't go to the diamonds this past year.
Right.
Can you believe that? But we did have another son, and last one. Not
Congratulations.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Not missing a tournament due to a kid being born anymore. That stuff's never happening again, right?
Oh,
but,
yeah, but it's the best thing. That makes you wake up every morning, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. This kid, this new kid, my youngest son, Adrian. Yeah, he's great, but he has this capability of pooping up that I've never seen before. So.
Oh man,
enough of that. That's enough of that.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Alex. See, we never know what we're gonna expect. Never know what we expect. Man, Alex Lane, thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. And honestly, there's so many other things I think that we need to have you back on to talk about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I know. I feel like there's some things that you and I could share about as far as running tournaments, running finals, because I know your dad had always told me you were the guy that made sure you were running night shows. You know, lots of things like that, you know. And yeah, I mean, talking more about Gators and stuff, and talking about things like even getting more into the concussion protocol rules and things, because I know you look at the sport, you know, from that mindset as well, you know, as far as not just a competitor, but as a, you know, a promoter's kid, and also really you're a promoter as well with that. So we'd love to have you on again and talk about that. And then maybe when we get some news about, you know, the new JPM fighting pickups, maybe we'll let you weigh in on that too. So
absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a long time, you know, talking to everybody and everybody out there on social media. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Looking forward. I hope our new squad of fighters that comes up, you know, definitely be good to talk about for sure. And then, you know, going forward with the sport and the league, doing the best interest to get back on this, because, you know, at the end of the day, competitors want to get back out to compete. You know, that's the most important thing that I like to hope continue and help out as much as I can.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
And also to see you
come back
versus Jeremy Roquet in the virtual fight tour.
Oh, God.
Coming up. Yeah. Tell me, that would be a fun fight. That would be a fun fight. You know it.
It would be fun, but I'm gonna pass on that one. Jeremy and I go to.
Oh man,
he's got way more training and right now than I do for sure, and it would definitely not gonna happen.
Hey guys, if you have a young fighter,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, young fighters, go on YouTube, Alex Lang right now. Watch the fights, you know,
Yeah.
and check
Watch-
out especially.
Watch a leg that looks like it's going to be checked and then slip right over a guard and knock
Exactly.
someone out with a round kick. Go and watch
Oh,
that.
come on now.
You-
That didn't happen
like
all
I'm
the
lying.
time.
Like I'm lying. All right. I had such a great time. Jeff, did you have a great time?
Of course.
This is fantastic. This is just round one.
Yes.
This has been another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I am Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. See you guys next week. Thanks, Alex Lane.
Thank you, guys. See you.